Hello there, and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things, I'm an artist, and I'm best known for my colouring books for grown-ups. So Entangled, the Colour Me Calm series of books, and so many others that I've done over the past several years, it seems. And I continue to do those, but I also was a teacher for 28 years in a secondary school, high school, teaching mainly teenagers with special needs science. But diagrams and illustration were always part of that process. And I developed or discovered that I loved drawing or was capable of drawing when I was about 40 years old, which is a while ago now. And since then I've developed things, and I have a particular love of abstract, of pattern, of nature, of all kinds of things, geometrics. I'm often very intricate. And even though I'm no longer a teacher as such, I still love to use those skills to encourage and to help other people or inspire other people to take up a pen and a piece of paper and just see what they can do. With no pressure, never having to show anybody, just for pleasure, for fun, for enjoyment, for de-stressing, relaxing, whatever it may be. And quite simple and quite stylised work and quite whimsical is what I do, particularly in colouring books, then that is naturally my kind of art. And abstract is great because it doesn't have to look like what you're trying to draw, which is even better if you haven't got the confidence in yourself to draw, or it's your particular style of drawing. And I witter, don't I? So I just want to thank everybody here who's subscribed so much for doing that, for clicking that little button. It's totally free to do. It doesn't cost you a thing. And the likes and the thumbs up, the likes for videos are very much appreciated as well. Just shows that I'm kind of on the right track, I guess. So thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And click the bell if you want to be notified when I release a new video. It can be a bit random at times. It depends what's going on in my life at any given time. So what I've got in front of me here is a piece of, it's just sketchbook paper. I think it's C. White's All Media paper. And it's about, a little bit shy of 5 inches. Yeah, so check over there, square. I can't remember what it is in, oh, hang on, I've got a ruler. I can tell you what it is in centimetres. So I've got the cut side of my cutting mat that is in inches. So it's 12.5 centimetres square, 12.5 centimetres square. So what I thought I'd do today was have a look at some Zentangle fragments, or take a fragment and do variations with it, because it's something I particularly enjoy doing and seeing where things lead me, how I can get things looking a bit different. And it's also leads to other patterns that can lead to other things in drawing, and it just gets your mind being creative. So I thought today I'd start with some square fragments. So I'm just going to draw a square on here. Hopefully you'll see what I do. I'm never very good at positioning my camera. I keep trying different ways of doing it for you. And if I fill this piece of paper, I've got plenty of others the same size. So there's a square there. Perhaps if I tilt my camera just a little bit less. How about that? Possibly. I will also autofocus. And I particularly love things that start somewhere at the centre. So I'm just going to put a circle at the centre. And to begin with, I'm going to divide the square this way. And then I'm going to add a square next door. Put another circle in the centre. This time I'll divide it instead of diagonally, horizontally and vertically. So I want to take these and see what variations I can do. So my brain is working logically. Well, what if I draw some columns with just a couple of variations using a square with these. So I like this. I like these. Now, my brain is going, I want to put like rice shapes here. Which is really quite nice as well. So we're starting to get petals. And of course, I could leave it like that, but I think I might just on the bottom ones add this so it looks a bit more. Actually, I'll do it on all of them because I quite like the more puffy nature of these. I also do like the spaces between them, but I do like a border around the edge, so I'm going to create an internal border here rather than drawing another square around the outside. And then I have got here a couple of, they're the Staedtler Triplus fine liners, and this one I think is red. It looks like a red brown, but it might be a red, and I've got a more yellowy brown here. And I just think that it might be nice to use some colour in the background. So I'm just filling this with just lines that are parallel to the side of the triangle. Well, here, you can see what I'm doing. And that just darkens the background, that little bit. I could have done this in black, but every now and again I do like to stretch myself and use colour. So that's quite nice. And the other thing I think I may do with this is I am going to, see, I want to put something in here, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to leave it for now. There we go. I made it up. So that's quite an organic kind of pattern. So I'm going to start here again with same beginning. And rather than create these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to aura each side of these lines. I'm not turning my paper, so I'm getting some wobbly lines there, like this. So I've created a different kind of pattern, and I am now going to add that inner border, like so. Now that could remain as it is. I quite like that as it is, but if you know me, you know that is not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw triangles like this. Okay, and then I'm going to draw another inner border just here. And then I am going to put a final triangle in this space. As I go, I am looking at whether I've connected lines. And with this triangle, I am actually going to fill it in with black. Like that. So that adds a kind of woven pattern, but it adds depth going inwards. These, when shaded correctly, will look like they're puffing upwards, won't they? So I quite like that. Okay. Starting with the same basic, very simple fragment at the top. I'm also going to add triangles here. Now I'm going to touch them onto that central circle, like so. And then in these spaces, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill them with a muka, and I'm going to make sure that I draw the same, this motif in the same direction in each of these triangles by rotating my paper. So I'm always drawing it from the left to the right. So that looks quite nice as it is, but I'm wondering, can I squeeze a little one in on this side? And the answer is always. That's one of the nicest things about these particular organic shapes, which in Zentangle are called muka. And I'm going to be quite clear that I'm not a Zentangle certified teacher, CZT, a certified Zentangle teacher. I, just like so many other people, enjoy these kinds of patterns and ways of using them. And I just like to share what I do. So I'm going to also pop one under this bigger one here. And I think that will be the extent of me being able to add these in. But there are a couple of things that I want to do. I think I will fill these gaps in black this time, just to give that contrast, but I could have used another colour. Because another colour certainly would have worked just as well. And I quite like putting quite dense colour in the background. As I say, it's that contrast that brings everything out. Just like this. It also, I think, helps to bring the more triangular shape of that section out as well, so it doesn't get lost so much with these. Some of these bigger shapes, like these ones at the top corner, I could have fitted a little bead in, a pearl or an orb, however you want to call it. But if I want to, I can always go back and add that with a gel pen afterwards. I think I've got space at the bottom here just for one more. Like so. So what can we do with this one? The answer is, at the moment, I don't really know. Oh, I was a bit off centre with that one, but it's fine, it'll work out. So let's have a look. That's one of the disadvantages of not rotating your paper. So what I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to put another circle in the centre of these. Now, I've got no idea where this is going. You do realise this. And with these, I'm just going to colour them in black. I'm going to colour the central one in black as well. Again, if I want to highlight on these, I'll come back with a white gel pen afterwards. And what I think I'm going to do here is connect them in a square. So it's a V shape like this. And so I'm getting a kind of net going on here. And I am going to, where these cross over, could be fun to put these in. Now I've ended up with something that is like floors, is it? The tangle pattern floors, but got to it in a completely different way. It would have been a lot easier to draw the grid in and then put these in. But what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pick one of my coloured pens up. I've got the lighter one here. And I'm going to aura these And hopefully you can see that I've actually gone around the circles in that, as if there's a little piece nibbled out of a square in the centre here, which is exactly what it is. This would actually look lovely in blue. It would look like a pattern on blue china, blue and white china. But I didn't dig a blue out, so we'll use the browns, which is fine. So I've gone from what is a fragment to what is an actual pattern that could be used overall. What a fussy way to get to there, eh? Sometimes I only think I'm sure I'm not the only one who manages to do things like this. It's the nature of patterns. If you start to get too complicated, then you end up creating something like that. So that's quite nice, though. I quite like how that's worked out. So, to excuse me a moment, I just need to go and do something. I'll be back. Okie dokes, that's better. Now then, to this one here. So I do want to do things that will be a little bit different here, but I'm not quite sure how yet. I could put rice shapes in there, but I think I will, but only half. And I am going to put them on the lines. They kind of rotate round, a bit like sails on a windmill. Just putting a border behind that line, so we've got strong lines there. And this then, I'm going to turn into something that's like a crescent moon. And you can see what I've done here. Instead of redrawing this, I've actually gone to this one. So my next one underneath is when I will draw this one as it, as it was. So that would work quite nicely, I think. And I could carry on adding those in, but I think I quite like the space that's there. And I also think I'd quite like, oh, would I? No, I wouldn't. I was thinking I might quite like these. They're going to connect here and it's going to make things look just a little bit awkward. So I'm just going to add some shapes like this. And I'm just going to add some weight at each end so it does look like I've added something here and almost welded it in place. Not sure that works, but you know. So let me go back to this. And that's my starting point. So just as a reminder, this is what I started from. Jeez. To go and do something for a moment or two or three or several, I come back and I completely forget what I was doing. Now then, for this one, I'm going to go with all quite flat triangles on there. So they're a different kind of leaf, I suppose. They still look leaf-like, but more geometric. And I quite like that. My mind is going to actually connecting them, but I'm not going to. Do I want to put an aura around them? Do you know what? I think I may. So it's a tethered aura, as they call it. So I'm starting the line connected here out a bit and going back and connecting. So these are ending up looking a little bit like gems. Or they have a three-dimensional quality to them that I quite like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about halfway down this side, here and here, and I'm going to put that border in at the back. And I will put one of these little beads in there because I have drawn everything there just that little bit bigger. And I can see here, can you see I've got like arrowheads pointing outwards here. That was unexpected. What can I do to fill this space? I could just keep going. No, I don't know. I think the best thing I can do to fill this would either be with a solid colour, or I may do a couple of samples here. I quite like Tipple would work quite nicely. This filling pattern of tiny little circles that are not exactly the same size, so that would work quite nicely. I think if you've got a lovely fine pen and a careful touch, then filling this space with spirals, little spirals, would work. Which is the Tangle pattern called Print On. And I am going to do some cross hatching. So lines in this direction, then I'm going to go back with lines in this direction. So I'm filling that with tiny little lines. And then the last one, I think I'm just going to fill with almost like polka dots, but I'm going to vary the size of them so you don't have to worry about getting a completely even pattern when you do this. You can vary the spacing and everything else. Just a background texture. So we've got some samples there of how we can fill that in. I like to do that on pattern explorations or fragment explorations, because rather than creating one that I could use exactly as it is, I then get these variations, these options, and I can test run things to see how they were going to work. Now then, okay, let's put one in the middle. I'm going to put that as a centre, and I am going to draw a double line. So I'm not drawing across the exact centre of that circle with a line. I'm drawing these so the centre line would be in the middle of them. So that is quite nice. And then what I'm going to do here, in each of them I'm going to draw this. Yeah. So a square that starts from the outside edge in, and then I'm going to draw almost like a border that way. And then I'm going to do another square just like this. And then we're going to go around this way. So I am just weaving things in and out. And here, for the last little one, I can just pop that way. And I am going to fill that there with black, because it will put everything towards the back. And of course, again, this is where shading will bring things out a lot more. And in fact, here, for a couple of these, I may just try perhaps an alternating rows. We can add these like that. So we get a different kind of thing going on there. That's a bit more interesting. Okay, last one here. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to put a little circle here, and I will draw these lines going this way and then this way. Check them on screen. But what I'm going to do at the ends here is I'm going to add what is essentially a triangle that the sides aren't straight but they're slightly curved. Hopefully you can see that one, it's a bit slightly curved, and I'm going to fill them in. So I'm creating an interestingly shaped space here. And I do want to do something with that. And I think here what I'm going to do, this one, is I'm just going to aura inside this space, is draw a smaller version of that shape inside the space, and then I can't draw lines going this way through them, but I can draw some diagonal lines here, I think, like so. I'm trying to think what I could do here. I think I'll do the same here as I did with the horizontal and vertical lines, and weight them at the end like that. So I've got something different going on here. And again, that would be fun, perhaps, to add some colour to. Perhaps on one side. We'll have a look now. So if I rotate this around, it's going to be this side. Always the right side. In this case. Or the lower half when I've got the dark bit towards my left. So that's quite interesting. But I could add lines going this way, which I think I might do actually, because then these really do look like little leaves. And which one could I do? That one, because I can fill it in without too much twisting and turning of this paper. I'm not worrying too much about making the lines match up exactly. They're so close together that it's really not going to be too much of a problem if they don't. But they do give some movement and motion there, and again, adding some shadow and highlight will really help to bring that out. I like that. That one's actually worked out quite nicely. No organic-y ones. Well, that one could count as organic-y, but no, nothing with like mucas or anything in. So let me just take this one again this way, and I think I'll do the same thing where I do this almost like ribbon, like border or division, like this. And then I'm going to try and think about how could I'm going to imagine there's the vertical, the diagonal line here, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to draw one spiral that side and one spiral that side to create like a muka, and I will just fill that little bit in there. So I'll do that again. I'm going to imagine that I've got a line here, follow up, down and round, and then back, and I'm just going to add a little bit of weighting, rounding in the bottom there, and I'll do it between the two here as well. And I'm just noticing I also need to do that where these connect, the outer part of the box.
What did you do and what did you see?
So we've got that one. So there's one there, and I'll go to this side and do one here. And then I'm just going to add the corner rounding, as they call it in Zentangle, that extra bit of ink in the corners, it makes it look like they've almost been welded or soldered there, like you would see in stained glass. Something I'd used in art long before I discovered Zentangle. It's probably inspired by stained glass. So I've got this going on here. Now in the corner here, I'm going to pop in an orb or a bead or a pearl, whatever you want to call it. Circle, circular-ish shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just that I just want to put some black around it so that it gives a nicer shape to that space. So it evens that space up. So that's really quite nice. And then I've got these gaps on either side. Now, if I'd thought ahead, and I'll do one more, I'd have actually made these go right out to the edge, but here I haven't. So what I think I'm going to do here is I'm just going to fill these with a series of orbs. Just filling the space in. Actually, I don't like that. Maybe I've done that. I don't like it, so I'm going to fill them in with black on this one. Solid black there. On this one, I'm going to use some lines that are going to mirror the cross pieces there. On this one, I'm going to fill with lines that are parallel to the outer line, which actually I think suits me far more, to be honest. And then on this one, let's use a different colour. We use that red, and I will use that instead. To show that colour is possible there. I quite like that one actually. And then I said I'd do one more of these, so I'll do that one up here, which is where that one really should have gone. So I'm going to put a nice circle in the middle. The ribbons that go across. I will call these ribbons because that's what they look like. Bars. They're not just lines, are they? Like so. And then I'm going to go up and I'm going to make sure that I connect my spiral, my muka, because that's what it ends up as, right to the other side and back to the bar, like this. So I've got a much less space to worry about filling in, as it were. I want them to take up as much space as I can get them to take up here. And if they're all slightly different sizes and different shapes, then that's also fine as well. It all works out in the end. It's obvious that you're repeating something, and your mind, when you're faced with a whole section filled with a repeat of this, your mind will just assume that everything is very similar. So I am going to do the same in the corner. So I quite like that bead motif in the corner. I do. Fill these little bits in with black. I'm going to go there and just tidy everything up where I can. Oh, and see what I've done here. I have to do that here as well. Is fill these little bits in. And I think I'm going to fill these in with black as well. And suddenly by giving a black background, it just gives some clarity to the design. You could see the design when it was left just with lines, but you add black or a colour or a different pattern in either black or a different colour to the background, and suddenly these parts just pop out and it all makes sense. So I am going to put a bead in the middle there, and I'm going to do the same on that one because that looks nice. So I've got quite a few here, just based on this and this. I don't have so many of this one, but that's fine. I think that one's my favourite there, to be honest. So let me just pop this to one side. And what I'm going to fertile around for is I have a pencil. I have got a pencil. And I have got a tortillon that will need a bit of a clean. I've shown you this before. This is a paper stump, but it works for the tortillons that are wound paper. This is some sandpaper. And you just try and keep the angle the same. And you use the sandpaper just to take away the stained paper. And it will pick some up because there's marks here. So if you look at this one, and yet you get fluff and dust. And I don't know where I've put some masking tape so I can pick it all up, because that's what I usually use, is masking tape. Pick it all up, stop it flying around the place, creating dust in the house. You can see just with hardly any effort at all, we've cleaned that up. And what I'm doing here is, I have a habit of blunting the ends of these, and really you need to keep them quite pointy, which means you need to hold them at a flat angle, almost flat on the sandpaper, to actually keep a point to them. So I'm just going to tap that off in my bin, and that'll be fine, my waste bin here. Okay, I'm just going to use a graphite pencil. This is a 2B. Most probably could do with a sharpen. So I'll do that very quickly. Ooh, perhaps a bit too sharp, but it'll be fine. So I want to give some dimension to this. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to pop some graphite around the edge and towards the centre. And I may only do this on one through the video, because I know this is likely to end up being quite a long video. I don't want the graphite to travel too far. I want to keep the centre nice and white. So that one I have got a bit too much there. I'm also going to add some graphite right here over the red parts, because I want those to really sink back in the centre, just like that. And you can use graphite over colours, that's not a problem. You can also use colours over a colour to get that kind of monochrome kind of feeling. So that's a bit better, it's a bit more bright white in the middle. But you get the idea here. And I'll also add a little bit to the centre of this, just towards the bottom. And I'll carefully just bring that out. So there's a bit of shadow there, and hopefully it makes it look more like it's a bit of a bead. So I'll just add some towards the centre on these and the edge. Because to be honest with you, I think by putting some around the edges, I may be making more work for myself than I need, because there'll be enough graphite on the pencil to actually, on the paper stump, on the tortillon, to actually add shadow to those side regions. But I want the corners, that darkest bit. And then just to finish off this, I'm just going to add lots of graphite underneath here because I want this really quite dark. I could have done this with pen, with lines and so on, cross-hatching, but I haven't, so I'm going to use the pencil. And I don't want this to move very far. The whole point of this really is to get the graphite worked into the paper fibres so it's less likely to smudge. It'll always smudge a little bit, but it's less likely to smudge badly. So I've got that going on there. Okay, this one is going to be interesting. I want to focus on where these sections overlap. So it's going to be a bit zigzaggy, like this. And I am going to put a bit there and a bit there. And let's see how this works. I'm looking for the... So a bit of shadowing there, bit there, bit here, bit here, bit there, bit there, bit there, bit there. So I've started to add some shadow, so I want a little bit at the points of these triangles, then where at the ends of each of these sort of like lines where they meet, you know, where they overlap. So a bit here, bit there, bit there, bit there, bit there, bit there. Where it's longer, you can actually make the shadow a little bit longer. And there we're starting to get that kind of overlapping going on. Part of me wants to put an overlap here, but I think what I'd want to do really is perhaps just to thicken these lines a little bit, just to make those have that feeling of dimension rather than adding the shadow. But you can see the difference just that bit of shadow makes from one side to the other. Okay, this one, the mucas, I think I'm just going to add some shadow on the lower part of these. And it will rotate around. We're not doing light sources here. So let me just deal with that first. This probably will get a bit more shadow than I want because I'm using a paper stump that has been used, not cleaned up. And I do want to put some shadow right round the edge where the white parts are, like so, just to have a feeling that this might actually be like a hole through the paper and we're looking down on something. So that'll work. And I am also going to put some shadow around here just to give the feeling that these bars go underneath that central circle, which has got some shadow on it. Now, I'll come back with a white gel pen. This one, I think I'm going to put some shadow right the way around the edge, because that will lift this up. But part of me is quite tempted to add some shadow along the lines, but I think this is too small a pattern to do that with. I think I'll end up with an awful lot of shadow and not a lot of highlight, so we'll just stick to the edge and have it feeling that it's doming up in the middle. That could be made more domey if you were to bend these lines to make an uneven grid. So that actually works quite nicely. This one here, I'm going to put shadow underneath each of these, like so. So let me put that in first. Sometimes this is where you start and then look and then you think, right, okay, the next thing I want to do is, and I think I'm also going to add some shadow here and perhaps at the end. Because I just feel this might be underneath this inner section. To try and leave that little highlight there. So it's about moving the paper stump, the tortillon, back and forth just in a very small area, just to work it into the paper. So that works quite nicely. And I think we might do some shadow just halfway round this and perhaps underneath the inner circle. This is going to be challenging given the state of my stump. That'll work. Right, okay, so the edge of those sort of crescent moons is very white, so I'm just making that paper darker. It's got a very unusual kind of pattern going on here. Okay, for these, it's definitely going to be at the corners. So that we want that highlight in the middle. Like so. So let's see that I can do this. And again, it's not about spreading the graphite very far. It's more about working in and just softening the edges of it so we haven't got a harsh line. But I definitely want to leave a considerable space in the centre. I'm going to add some shadow under here as well and just perhaps add some shadow in between these, perhaps to lift them up. That might work quite nicely actually. So rather than trying to just get shadow underneath these sections, which are quite small, is focusing on this gap between them and perhaps easing out a little bit. So that really does help. And then some shadow on either side of these. And I am really putting plenty of graphite there because I want that to feel a lot darker than the rest. And again, it's going to be just blending it in as much as I can and just spreading a very light layer of graphite just a little bit further, as if there's a bit of a shadow there. I think that'll work. That seems to work okay. This could do with a little hint of shadow underneath, just to give that some dimension. So that seems to work. This is another one of those where we've got weaving taking place, and I think I would most probably do it in a similar way to this. It's the same kind of pattern here as here in a way. So we've got woven edge there and there, there and there, here and here, and here and here. And so if I work on these, there's a little bit there as well. Then that gives me quite a bit of shadow going on. That'll work. And then so let's do that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And we've got that. Actually, that works really astoundingly well. Even I have to admit that was pretty good. I can see that illusion. It's not often that I see how something changes shape with the shading straight away. I tend to have to walk away for a while and see it. But even I can see it with this one. Just by putting the shadow where these overlaps are. And just teasing it out that little bit. And a little bit there. And then that really does look like we've got a, this is raised up, doesn't it? I'm amazed. I'm fully amazed at that. Right, but this one, I'm going to put shadow around the two edges opposite this dark point, or dark tip to this particular shape or leaf. So I'm going to put some shadow there. So that helps a little bit. Most probably would need a little bit more than that, but I'm happy with that just as it is. So this one, definitely going to put some shadow here at the base of these, the bottom of the little mucas, inside there. And most probably I'll need some shadow actually all the way round that inner circle, so just not spreading it too much, more softening, and here I'm just going to spread it out that little bit and use what's on my paper stump just to add some shadow to those, and that lifts things up just that little bit. The bigger you do these, the more space you've got to do things. So these are bigger perhaps than I, perhaps do a filling pattern, but they're not so big that they're awkward, that these would be, the word's not awkward. What words am I trying to find here? They're small enough to have some detail in them, but they're not so big that I need to have a lot more detail, if that makes any kind of sense. I'm not entirely sure I am making sense even to myself with that statement, but so I am just softening again these shadowy bits out. And again, I'm just going to add some shadow right at the end of these cross pieces there, just with what's on the tortillon. This one doesn't work the same, does it, as this? That illusion isn't working as well. Interesting, given that it's just rotated that little bit. Perhaps, no, I've done it exactly the same way, I think, yeah. Who knows? I'm not going to even try and fathom it. But there we have today's pile of, just pop my tools here so you have there's an image of them. So today's pile of fragment variations. I haven't filled the whole paper in. I'd be here for another hour, I think. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you can take some inspiration from it and you'll give these a go, not just in fragment form, but in creating an overall pattern, a repeating pattern, by using these, drawing a grid of squares and filling each square with each of these, and see what happens. Some of them, there are no rotation, they're perfectly, perfectly symmetrical. This one though, you could reflect it, but I think it would work as it is, going side by side perhaps. I'm not entirely sure. But have fun, enjoy yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you here again. So I'll say bye-bye for now, and be creative. Ta-ra.